It started like any other morning. The sun was barely climbing over the rooftops, casting long golden beams down the quiet suburban street. I grabbed my coffee, stepped outside, and felt that calm, predictable rhythm of the neighborhood. But then I froze. Right across my driveway, blocking me in completely, sat a shiny SUV. Its nose almost kissed my garage door, its tail jutting into the street like it owned the place. And standing proudly beside it, arms crossed, clipboard in hand, was Karen, the neighborhood's self-proclaimed queen, the woman everyone else whispered about but avoided. She saw me, and the smirk spread across her face like she'd been waiting for this moment all week. "You're not going anywhere," she snapped, her tone sharp, rehearsed. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly imagined, was that today of all days, I was expecting a very important visitor. And by the time he arrived, her little act of control would turn into the biggest humiliation of her life. To understand how we got there, you have to know how life under this HOA worked. It wasn't just rules, it was a regime. Karen thrived on policing every detail. If your grass grew half an inch too tall, you got a warning. If your trash bin lingered on the curb for more than a day, you'd find a bright slip taped to your door. And if you dared to challenge her, she doubled down. For years, people stayed quiet, too tired to fight back, too nervous to call her bluff. But I had been in this neighborhood long enough to see the pattern. Karen didn't enforce rules to keep things orderly. She enforced them to feel powerful. And on this morning, she decided to wield that power against me in the most blatant way possible, blocking my driveway with her car to make a point. Now, here's the part she didn't know. Weeks before, I'd reached out to city officials about community improvements, repaving crumbling sidewalks, fixing drainage issues, even updating safety codes around intersections. After a string of calls and proposals, I'd actually gotten somewhere. The mayor himself had agreed to come, meet me at my home to walk through the issues firsthand. It wasn't some ceremonial handshake visit, it was a working meeting. He wanted to see the problems up close, talk with residents, and figure out how the city could help. For me, it was huge. For Karen, though, she was about to unknowingly wedge herself into a moment she couldn't control. Standing there, coffee still in my hand, I tried reason first. "Karen, you're blocking my driveway," I said evenly. She tilted her head, feigning innocence.
"Oh, am I?"
"I thought this was common property. Driveways are an extension of the street. You know, and besides, you've had too many cars parked around lately. Consider this a warning." Her voice dripped with smugness. My jaw tightened, but I kept calm. "I need you to move your car. I have a meeting." She laughed, that shrill, dismissive sound that grated like nails on a chalkboard. "A meeting? With who? The Pope? You can wait." She turned her back to me, scribbling something on her clipboard as if her authority was absolute. Minutes passed, tension thickening like a storm rolling in. And then, just as I set my cup down, I heard the unmistakable sound of an engine, a black sedan pulling up slowly, followed by another vehicle behind it, the mayor's car. He stepped out, tailored suit catching the morning light. Posture steady, confident. An aide trailed close behind with a folder under his arm. Karen whipped around, clipboard still clutched to her chest, eyes narrowing at the sight. You could see the flicker of uncertainty flash across her face. She hadn't expected this. "Not today, not here." "Good morning," the mayor greeted warmly, extending his hand to me as if we'd known each other for years. I shook it firmly, nodding. "Thanks for coming out, I appreciate it." His gaze shifted almost immediately to the car blocking my driveway. "Is that yours?" he asked, eyebrows raising. Before I could speak, Karen jumped in. "Yes, and it's staying right there," she declared, her tone laced with defiance. "This resident has been violating community guidelines, and I'm within my rights as an HOA representative to enforce them." The mayor studied her for a moment, silent. The air grew heavy. Then, with the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, he said, "You're blocking access to a resident's property. That's not enforcement, that's obstruction." Her face twitched. For the first time, the clipboard didn't seem like a shield, but a weight. She stammered, trying to find footing. I was just ensuring compliance. You see, this homeowner," but the mayor raised a hand, cutting her off. His voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "Ma'am, I'm here on official city business, and you're interfering with it. That's a problem." The silence that followed was suffocating. Neighbors had begun peeking out from behind curtains, whispering from porches. They could sense it, the moment Karen's reign was cracking. The aide leaned in, murmuring something to the mayor, who nodded before stepping closer to Karen. I'm familiar with HOAs. I know their role, but you've crossed a line. A driveway isn't common property, and frankly, it's alarming that you believe intimidation is an acceptable form of management. His words cut sharper than any shouted argument ever could. Karen's face flushed, her lips trembling as she tried to summon her usual authority, but it was gone. In front of the mayor, her power shriveled. And then came the twist. The mayor turned back to me. Shall we walk? I'd like to see the issues you mentioned. He gestured down the street. And together we began our walk. Him, his aide, and me, while Karen stood frozen beside her SUV, still blocking the driveway that no one cared about anymore. With every step, it felt like the neighborhood itself was breathing easier, watching their so-called enforcer exposed as powerless. Karen, once the loudest voice, had been silenced in front of the highest authority in the city. As we walked, I explained the drainage problems, the cracked sidewalks, the safety concerns. The mayor listened intently, asking questions, taking notes, showing genuine concern. Meanwhile, Karen hovered in the background, torn between following us to save face or retreating to lick her wounds. Every time our eyes met, hers darted away, humiliated. And the neighbors? Some stepped out, cautiously joining the conversation. For the first time, people spoke freely about what needed fixing, no longer worried about Karen's clipboard catching every word. It was like a dam had burst. Halfway through, the mayor paused and glanced back at Karen's SUV. Someone should move that, he muttered. One of the aides quietly signaled, and within minutes, a city tow truck ironically rolled up to the scene. Karen panicked, rushing forward. No, wait, that's my car! Her voice cracked. But it was too late. The crew was already positioning the vehicle. The symbolism was almost too perfect. For years, she'd weaponized towing threats against others, and now her own car was being hauled away in front of everyone. Neighbors watched in stunned silence before the whispers turned into quiet laughter. Justice, it seemed, had a sense of humor. By the end of the walk, the mayor shook my hand again. You've done this community a service, he said firmly. I'll make sure these issues are prioritized. His words carried weight, the kind that resonated far beyond one street. As his car pulled away, neighbors gathered around me. Some clapped me on the back. Others just smiled, relief written across their faces. Finally, one whispered. Finally, someone put her in her place. Karen, now carless and red-faced, stormed off toward her house. The clipboard clutched like a shield she no longer knew how to use. And that's the real heart of this story. It wasn't just about a blocked driveway. It was about power, and how quickly false authority crumbles when faced with the real thing. For years, Karen thrived on intimidation, on the fear she planted in others. But on that day, in front of the mayor and the entire neighborhood, she learned a truth she couldn't spin, couldn't write into a violation notice. Authority without integrity is nothing. It collapses the moment it's tested. So, what's the takeaway? Simple. Stand your ground when you know you're right. Don't let loud voices bully you into silence, because sometimes the very act meant to trap you ends up trapping them instead. Karen thought blocking my driveway would prove her control. Instead, it exposed her weakness. And while she walked away smaller, the neighborhood walked away stronger. Imagine that moment, her SUV being lifted onto a tow truck, her voice shrill with panic, while the mayor turned to me and said, "You've done this community a service. That's the kind of justice